Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome to the Black History Month discussion history, sponsored by the Illinois Historical Commission of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. My name is Charles Smoot. Charles Smoot or Chuck Smoot. I have the honor of serving as the Illinois District Historian for Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. We are here again this month. Very excited. Our next guest today, Brother Shaka Rawls, who is the principal of Leo Catholic High School, located on the south side of Chicago. We're going to talk to him about his path, his journey, and what he is doing and how he's been making a difference. And this brother has been doing some amazing work, so I'm eager and excited to share this all with you. Before we get into the actual discussion, just want to do some housekeeping. Again, this is our next to last Black History Month series for February. We're doing Brother Shaka Rawls on this installment. Our final installment to wrap out the month will be Dr. Ernest Jackson, who is the first Black forensic dentist in the world and is the director of dentistry and hygiene at the Missouri Department of Corrections. And that promises to be a interesting and enlightening conversation. So please hit like, hit subscribe, particularly if you're watching us on YouTube, to keep abreast of all of the discussions that we are having now and the future. And keep in mind, we have come to realization that we need to do these conversations more than just in Black History Month. So we will be continuing these discussions throughout the year. We have a number of interesting people lined up. Some will be members of our fraternity, others will not, because we will want to focus on what are people doing in our community, that some of us may not know about or never even heard of, but we do want to expose you to those issues. And so with that with that said, keep out. We're probably going to be doing it about once a month or once every other month, and continue this tradition of having these interesting and exciting conversations. So I'm going to bring on the stage now my Brother Shaka Rawls, the principal of Leo Catholic High School. Brother Rawls, thank you for being here. How are you, my brother?
I am good. It is an honor and a pleasure for you to have me. And this is quite an honor for my beloved fraternity to ask me to do something of this magnitude. So thank you so much.
Well, I thank you for being here. I've been watching your career. I've been watching, particularly since you became principal of Leo. And even though it is Leo, there's that problem, Whitney Young Dolphin here, I'm just saying you couldn't get to Whitney Young, but and all joking aside, I've been personally very impressed with the work you've been doing, and I know there are a number of other brothers who are equally impressed. So we want to not only expose you to our audience, but to expose you to other audiences. So I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Brother, if what I see on Facebook and Instagram is any indication, do you sleep?
I'm just trying to get 2 or 3 hours a night.
2 or 3 hours a night. Oh man, I'm telling you, it's I understand and am respectful of the pace that you keep. So with that, let's get straight into it. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, your early education, things like that.
Okay, so I'll kind of start. I'll give you, how I got here, kind of through college. I'm a kid of Woodlawn, right? I'm really proud to be from the old Woodlawn Gardens housing projects. There was a time in my career where I wouldn't tell people I was from the projects, but I'm a kid from Woodlawn and I'm proud of it. And it impacts the work that I do every day, and it impacts the lives that I touch. So I grew up in Woodlawn, right off of 60th and Cottage Grove. After that, we moved to 62nd and Rhodes, which I spent the next 30 years of my life there. So I've only lived 2 places prior to the house that I have now with my wife. And I was very fortunate to go to Catholic school, and obviously in the late 80s and the early 90s, public schools were pretty tough. And in fact, some of my research is on those schools. And my mother was very lucky to be able to afford to send 3 kids to private school. And so we did go to Holy Cross Elementary School, and then she sent me to Leo High School for high school. I excelled probably more so as a student as an athlete than I did as a student. I've always been a pretty average student. I learned how to work hard. I learned how to overcome my shortcomings here at Leo, and really had a really nice career. I was a 3-sport athlete for 4 years. Football, wrestling,
which sports? Was it
football, wrestling, and track?
Mm-hmm. What did you run in track?
I ran the 60 and I also threw shot and disc.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
so quick start. I got smoked a lot of, thank God they don't have any footage, but I always say I was on the track team. That's the way I felt about my football career in college. I was on the team. That's my claim to fame. I made the squad.
I feel you. I was on the track team when I was in high school, and I was on the track team. I completely understand. Now, when you were at Leo, did you have was that where your desire to get into being an educator was developed, or were you looking at perhaps another path while you were there?
I've always thought that I should have gone to law school. I never wanted to be an educator. I always wanted to go to law school. It's still probably one of the missteps of my life. I tell the boys that I made some bad decisions and I ended up being a high school principal. So, I say it in jest. I love where I am in life, but I should have gone to law school. I left here with the intentions of going to law school. My mother studied law and is a lawyer. And so I really wanted to kind of follow in her footsteps. And the cards just weren't in it for me for a number of different reasons.
Gotcha.
And so after I graduated, I played 3 sports. I was recruited to a small school, Aurora University, a Division III school, where I played football. I was on the football team for 4 years, actually 5 years with an injury. And it was great to have. I learned the value of the grind when I was in college. I struggled academically. That was hard for me. I struggled getting playing time on the field. That was difficult for me. And I learned how to, even though things are difficult, and if they're hard, that you can still do them, right? And so that's one of the mantras that we use at school, is that we can do hard things, right? And so normalizing doing difficult things and taking on challenges, right? It's part of the core of our fraternity is to do what's not being done, to do what's needed. And so that was some of the things that I was really able to embrace when I was in college, and it's paid off for me dividends over the course of my career. After 4 years of college, I realized that I wanted to coach. That was what brought me into education.
Okay.
So I finished my education degree, and I wanted to coach football because I wanted to be around the game.
Right.
Clearly, I enjoyed being around the game. I just spent 4 years watching other people play football. I had the best seats in the house, though.
What position did you play when you were playing football?
Mostly water boy, but I was listed as a fullback. I was the official hype man of the Aurora University Spartans.
Okay, all right.
But I was listed as a fullback, but I was undersized. I'm 5'6" any given day. With lifts on.
Right,
and,
right.
Playing at that level, it's some men amongst boys out there. So I definitely was outmatched.
No doubt. So when you got to Aurora, and you had the camaraderie of the football team, so what was it that attracted you to Alpha Phi Alpha? What was it about the fraternity that drew you in and made you want to be a member?
I would say, I would be remiss if I wouldn't say there were 3 people in particular that really drew me into the frat, and that would be Dana Johnson, Everett Gilmore, and Michael Dion Robinson, my dean and my closest friends. All of them still are very close to me today. It was the example that they set on campus, the roles of leadership, the way they carry themselves. That the poem "There Goes an Alpha Man." It's like you could see that they stood out, and that was something that I initially I wanted to be a part of. But I also have to say I do have an older brother who attended Leo, and he's also in the fraternity from Iota Gamma, Spring '91. So I've often idolized him. So
what school is that?
Iota Gamma is Russ College. It's a dechartered chapter, Russ College in Holly Springs, Mississippi.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And so those things together, my brother gave me the exposure to and the lure of, but then seeing how the alphas on campus, and actually my brother took me to college and he asked the alphas to look out for me. And boy did they, They took me under their wing. They made sure I was where I was supposed to be, and I met who I was supposed to meet. And that, again, friendships and relationships that have just grown closer since their inception.
So while you were at Aurora, in between your experiences with the fraternity and with the football team and just with the campus in general, in what ways, looking back, do you see how they have perhaps informed your path and your career as an educator, as a principal, and as someone who is functioning in the community? Are there any things you can look back on?
100%, yeah, 100%. I mean, the things that we do here is understanding is our place, right? In the larger society, this is essentially what social justice is all about, right? Understanding how you fit into a community effort, your responsibility to that community. And that's what I felt with the fraternity. That's what I felt at Aurora University. That's what I felt at Leo High School. So in many ways, the school that I've helped to construct here or continue to shepherd here is just a product of what I've experienced throughout my journey. And that is that not only am I responsible for myself, but I'm also responsible for my community. And so it's being a part of an important part of a community, and also being being held responsible to that community.
Right.
So decentralizing myself in these group efforts, and saying that sometimes I always jokingly say that I do this for the culture, right? And so, it's not just I want to raise young Black kings here at Leo High School, but the work that I do here is for the culture. And so that's kind of the way I look at everything moving forward.
And so after you did your time, I was about to say you did your time at Aurora, but after you graduated from Aurora, what did you do after that? And
so I immediately went to East Aurora High School. I was coaching actually varsity track, the sprinters, at East Aurora for 2 years.
Okay.
Trying to get on the football program, and then things brought me back home to back to the house that I stayed in for the next 20 years or 15 years, my childhood home. My parents separated, and I had the opportunity to go and buy their house, and that's what I did. So I started working at charter schools in Chicago. I worked at both charter schools and some public schools here, and I spent the next 15 years really figuring things out. Grad school, I did some time at Purdue University as an adjunct, as a visiting professor, trying to really find my space. And I think it was where I found really my footing at a charter school here in Chicago, which was great. For about 4 or 5 years, I rose to the rank of assistant principal, and then left to start my grad studies work at UIC, which is kind of where my life changed.
Now, which charter school were you at?
Perspectives Charter School.
Okay, and I kind of knew that, which is one thing I wanted to ask you about, is with your experience and what some of the conversations are now, both locally and nationally, about the whether or not charter schools are necessary, or are they unnecessarily infringing upon public schools? Are they pushing people towards private schools? What was your experience like in terms of a charter school as an effective means of education?
That's a good question. So let me start by saying I am completely biased, right? I mean, I worked at a charter school, right? And I currently work at a private school. So my relationship with the public sector as a general form of education is skewed by just my being, right? By my mortgage.
Which is fair.
Yeah, it's fair. But I also know what I did when I was at Perspectives, right? And that was create essentially what I have here is an environment that is not cookie cutter. And that's public education is built on this. If you the educational researchers would say that this neoliberal globalization model of the most efficient way to communicate education to young folks is to put 35 kids in a classroom with one teacher, and the teacher disseminates information for all of them, and they soak it up and they move on to the next class and they matriculate through that program. That's great if all kids learn that way, right? And so what we need is an education. And I think this is what the issue with Chicago Public Schools is, that not Chicago Public Schools is a bad system. It's not that kids need to be in private schools or charter schools or Chicago Public Schools. It's that all educational formats don't fit all children. So we need to be as nimble as possible when we're talking about young folks, right? And so I think we need spaces where they can have Perspectives use a disciplined life as the core tenets, right? This core values of goodness, right? Being responsible to yourself and your community. Those are core tenets at a school, and that's fine. You can build a school around those core tenets, or Here at Leo High School, we use kind of similar to those core tenets, but we use theology as a part of that, right? Like the idea of being responsible to God and being responsible to community and being responsible to your family. So you can have schools centered around core values, and then those people that believe in those core values could attend those institutions. Does it take money away from public schools? Absolutely. But also, does it reduce the number of students that are being suspended and not attending school regularly, right? Is it more successful than public schools in general for Black and brown folks? Yes, right? So the question is both and, right? And the idea of just having more funds available for public education is fine. But the question is, do we really want more public education? If you look at the numbers for Black and brown kids in Chicago, just in general, our success rate is dismal, right? It's dismal. Right. So the question is, do you want more of that? Like, right? I mean, really essentialize this and say, is this working for people that look like me? And if that answer is not absolutely yes, then the question is, do you spend more money on that? Or do you find more schools that are smaller, that have more dexterity, that have less bureaucracy, that have core beliefs, that have the religious components, right? And things to help students be more successful. Society should never at any point take anything away that's something that's going to help a young Black or brown, particularly boys, which is where I focus now, be successful. Boys and girls, but particularly boys, be successful. So find me the best fit. I don't care what that looks like. The Muslim schools may do a good job. The Hebrew Israelite schools may do a good job. The Jewish schools, it doesn't, whatever's doing right for children is what we should focus on.
Right. And yeah, it's, I mean, and I ask that because of the conversations that have been happening. The previous presidential administration gave us a Secretary of Education who was, shall we say, probably barely educated, but there just seemed to be a way of the type of conversations that we were having about different forms of education seemed to be, at least from my point of view, being pushed down, and other ideas, other aspects of education that could benefit children were being pushed to the side. And so, that's one of the reasons I asked that question. But how, coming out of the charter school, how did you land the opportunity at, you mentioned that you were an adjunct at DePaul. What were you teaching when you were at DePaul?
I was at Purdue County, and I was teaching social foundations and essentially what I've been studying in college, how the school and community how the community and the society impacts what we do inside of schoolhouses, right? So that's essentially, and it was an easy class to teach. I started grad school at UIC, and then I matriculated to the PhD program, and that made me my dissertation chair is Dr. David Stovall, who's from U of I, renowned, definitely internationally renowned. Dr. Steve Tozer, who was a mentor of mine. They just made me smart about the work that I knew how to do intrinsically, right? Which was beautiful for me. I was able to put words to things that I knew were right. I was able to articulate things. I was able to understand that there's a mechanical part about this and make those connections. So I was teaching that class for a number of years. I really enjoyed it, but I enjoy working with young folks.
And so how did the opportunity for Leo come up, and how did that present itself, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I was working at an elementary school as a community connector, and it was I wrote a grant. This is how it all started. I wrote a grant at a small school called Burke Elementary School. The grant was for $3 million while I was at Purdue. And so you write a $3 million grant. There's some perks that come with it. One is you give yourself a job, right? Right. So I wrote myself into the grant, which brought me away from Purdue and into Chicago Public Schools for the next 2.5 years. And during that time, the school really excelled. I mean, partly because all the work of the dozens of people that were in that building that were working hard for the young folks. But I also made some really solid community connections. And I realized that if you leverage community resources, the local pastor, the local businesses, the local the local grassroots organizations, local community activists, if you leverage those to help you do what you do inside of a schoolhouse, you'll have a much more effective institution for learning. Which is a beautiful lesson to learn. It sounds like it makes sense, but that's not what we do. Particularly, we don't do it in public schools. And so I started to leverage external resources in order to make what we do inside the building a lot more effective. And it was extremely effective. And that caught the eye of several people at Chicago Public Schools, and it caught the eye of my alma mater, Leo High School. They called me. I offered my services for free because I know it was a struggling school at that moment. And but as opposed to taking my services, they offered me the principal position here.
And so I just have to imagine that becoming the principal of the school that you once attended, that had to be, that in one sense that's coming full circle, returning back to the place that kind of gave you part of your foundation. But it also, I imagine there were a lot of emotions, a lot of nostalgia mixed up in that. Like what were those, first few months or what have you like being the principal at the very same school that you attended?
I'll be quite honest with you, and it's no disrespect to the people that kept this institution open, but Leo was going to a point where it was really in decay when I got here. The classrooms looked pretty much the same when I left. Some of the common areas looked pretty much the same when I left in 1993. And so it felt unfortunately very familiar to me.
Gotcha.
You would think 25 years later that the school would have made some improvements in some ways. We probably had 11 computers in the building. We were using chalkboards as instructional methods here, instructional apparatuses here. It was just we just needed to kind of move into the new age. And I come from university. I come from going to school at UIC. I've seen some of the best classrooms in the country, and to come back here and to see the kind of almost archaic method in which we were educating young folks. Not saying it's not effective because I learned that way, but just saying that we hadn't yet made the next stride. I was a little disappointed. The other thing is I thought that the culture of the school wasn't what I remembered it to be, right? That's always hard. I remember one interview Magic Johnson did when he briefly coached the Lakers. He always talked about that they were trying to establish themselves as being the new Lakers. And all he kept remembering is the old Lakers, right? And I didn't want to come here and say, I want this to be the old Leo. I wanted to come here, get the voice of the young folks and let them tell me what kind of Leo they wanted this to be. And so I was able to do that. It took some time though, but it was hard. It took some time. There was nights that I was crying on the floor in here, disappointed at not being successful and not getting traction. I mean, I can't lie and say there wasn't a bottle of bourbon or two involved, right? I mean, this was definitely, I thought, it was ordained work. God wanted me to be here, but it was definitely difficult. But over the course of time, I got more people to understand my vision. I was carefully curating the vision for my folks here and letting them understand, like, this is what we could be. I see greatness in us. And I don't think that someone ever told that to my staff before I got here. And so it was hard the first couple of years. I remember one day not really finally, I was standing outside and I had ordered whiteboards for all the classrooms. I measured all the class. I have no business ordering whiteboards. Nothing in college has ever taught me to order whiteboards, right? So I'm out here trying to figure it out, measuring boards, seeing how many I need. And the whiteboards pulled up and there wasn't a soul in sight. It was just me and the whiteboard and the truck guy. And he said, I don't do deliveries. He said, I drive. I don't take the stuff off the truck. And I just looked up and I said, okay, God, so I had to take every single whiteboard, unbox it, and carry it into the building. So, I mean, that's the sacrifice that you make in order to improve your school. And I kind of joked, and I went on social media and joked about it, but that was a laborious day, and it's not, you don't feel like you've made it when you're sitting up here schlepping whiteboards, in a tank top in 90-degree weather by yourself. But you also feel alone. That was one of the other things, is that this job is extremely lonely. I mean, as many people as I have in my cipher, 230 boys here. I have another staff of 25. There are roughly 250 people here that always want to have a conversation with me. But most of the time, I'm alone. I'm in the lab thinking about myself. I'm making tough decisions by myself. It's an extremely lonely job as well. So it's not. I'll probably make it look a little bit more glamorous than it is, but this is a pretty tough job.
And I can only imagine what it's like to be in that position now. How long have you been the principal there?
I'm in my 8th year.
8th year. Okay. Now, one of the top questions I wanted to ask you, and that I ask a lot of educators, there also has been a lot made of the lack of Black males in education, as educators. Problems getting Black males to want to be teachers, to want to come into the teaching profession. I guess this is a dual question. Is that a problem that you see? And if so, what types of things do you think could be done to help abate that?
Well, I think the first thing is that, oftentimes I find that, particularly in social media, we make a mockery of the profession, right? So unlike many other professions, teaching is a relatively flat career trajectory. Once you become a teacher, like maybe you can move up and become an assistant principal and all the things, but teacher is pretty much the job, right? It's not like you could be a teacher manager or people try to move up, so it doesn't really work that way. It's a pretty flat profession, and that's unattractive to most people. And what I think that we don't do is evangelize for our discipline enough, right? I'm going out to North Carolina, Greensboro, and they have a teacher education pipeline where they try to get high school kids to consider being teachers. And I try to do it every day in my building. I try to have fun. I look at the beauty of the profession, and I try to evangelize the work that we do. It's not enough people coming out here saying that this is an honorable career for a Black male, right? And I mean, you can do it right. You're making $58,000 coming out of college being a teacher, working 180 days. You could probably put your position into a job and a business and being an entrepreneur as well with no problem. And so I just think that we don't look at the dexterity that the position offers. We just look at the pay. We look at a position that's normally been associated with white women in general as not a destination spot for people that look like me. And so I'm going out and telling as much as I can, but we need other people to kind of really just evangelize. We need other Black men to get up and stand up. There are a couple of organizations for African-American male educators across the country.
Okay.
We need to galvanize, right? We need to really get them out there and galvanize them and say, hey, we're standing up for our culture. We're looking out for our people. We're teaching our young folks how to be good people. I think that'll help. And also, these HBCUs are pumping out educational grads right and left, right? And let's compensate these Black men. If you're a Black man and you could teach math at a high school level, you can get a job anywhere in the country almost right now, math or science or special ed. And so HBCUs, and as a society, really rewarding people who decide to dedicate their lives to the work of actually improving the lives of our people, right? And so I think that things like student teaching should be altered. Things like pay incentives, right? Give them more money. Give them money to say, hey, this is a solid job. I think we need to look at being a teacher as making it sexy as being an athlete or being a rapper.
And I just during my time when I was Theta's advisor, I had a couple of guys who actually were interested in becoming educators. I actually think I tried to send someone over to you once, but he didn't follow through. But that's But the thing is, what I realized is they were kind of. I guess I put it this way, you have some guys, you say, oh, well, what are you majoring in? What are you looking to do? Oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer, But I noticed with a couple of them was like, oh, I want to be a teacher. And almost like there was it was what they wanted to do, but somehow they felt a little shame behind wanting to be a teacher. So, and I'm wondering, do you see that in your role as a principal and what you've done as an educator, and how do you combat that?
So just look at consume these two. If I say to you I'm a teacher, that's one thing. If I say to you I'm an educator, that has a lot more power to it.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So I refer to my staff, they're educators, right? And so that allows them at least to say, a variety of different ways. I'm helping young folks see a better way. I'm helping them see a better light. And so just society has the moniker of teacher means young white female trying to, spinster trying to find a husband, especially a Catholic school teacher. Lord have mercy. The stigma behind Catholic school. Because they pay us in peanuts around here. So when you say I'm a Catholic school, I could say principal and people say, oh, the principal. I'm like, no, I'm probably making what a public school teacher would make, right? But the idea is that I pride myself on being an educator, right? I steward young men into manhood, right? That's a moniker of success. That's a moniker of something I can be proud of. I just think that society writ large is just, says that it's like a teacher is a diminutive term to educator, right? So we got to put the love back in the fact that helping young people become good, successful citizens is just as boastful as being a lawyer, right? It's just the same as keeping them out of jail, right? Actually, the real keeping them out of jail is actually being a good teacher. That's the real anti-jail.
Right, exactly. The best preventative medicine. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So now you said something earlier about what you were doing in when you were at the charter school and other places, but and I know you do some of this at Leo, but I want to ask, and this is specifically, this is a fraternity question, so I'm going to ask this on so that any brothers who are watching this are going to understand the reason for the question. When I contacted you and called you to ask you to do this initially, I was struck by your first reaction. And your reaction was, I don't remember exactly what you said, but you were like, I'm surprised you all are watching me, or something to that extent. And I'm like, well, of course we're watching you, we're almost the same era. So we got a lot of the, mutual bros in common and, things. But it struck me in what ways I had a conversation with someone once who was a principal, and he was a brother and a principal, and he bemoaned the lack of involvement of the fraternity in some school programs, that he really wishes he could get more involvement from the fraternity on different levels of the things that he was trying to do with his schools. And so I guess one of the questions that I would ask you is, what more could, given that you are at a all-male high school, so you are dealing with young Black men, young Black teenage men, what is it that you think Alpha Phi Alpha could do better to support not only the work that you do, but the work of other schools in and around, our neighborhoods and our communities?
Let me first start by saying Leo High School has a very strong relationship with Iota Delta Lambda. They have been good to my little school. They've been good to me personally. They have looked out for me since I walked in this building. Brother Cortez walked in almost right behind me and said, "We're ready to work," right? And so even through COVID, the brothers have taken my boys on college tours, provided pizza parties, field experiences, coordinated a field study at Aon, Exelon, all the connections that the frat has access to. We've been able to have some iteration of those inside or in conjunction with Leo High School, or my boys have had access to. So IDL, any brothers from IDL, please stick your chest out and be proud that you're helping the only all-Black Catholic male school in the state of Illinois do their work just a little bit better, right? And so that's the first thing. The second thing is that there are literally tens of thousands of young men that need the work that Alpha Phi Alpha does. So even though the work shines here at Leo High School, our efforts are still insufficient to help provide to fill the need of the young folks that are out here. When I was at Burke Elementary School, and the relationship is a lot more difficult in the public sector, which is the reason why I stay private, right? I could call my frat and say, pull up, and they're gonna be here, right? Y'all sign a few waivers and come on. Now the public school don't work that way, right? You're gonna have to clear about 16 hurdles, right? And so, and that's one of the reasons I enjoy, again, when you're talking about the different types of schools, private schools give me much more flexibility to do things like this, right? And so a couple of years ago, I took 8 kids to Ghana, West Africa. And the frat gave me a couple $1,000s to support that journey, right? So you can't pull that off, not without a small miracle and a note from the governor to do that in public school. So I think here in this instance, this iteration, the frat is doing what it's supposed to do. I just think that we're falling very short when you look at the city writ large. If you look at, we do a march around King. Our King holiday game is strong, right? We love doing King. Our coat drive game is strong. I'm saying this for the whole city, not just the frat, but for the frat especially. But there are other times in the summertime where we need to galvanize and pull ourselves around to wrap these young folks around, making sure that we have summer programs. Somebody from the frat call and say, we need to use your school to hold a peace rally or do a free day of youth workshops, whatever. Pull up. Like we got work to do. So I just don't think that we have the same drive that we do when I see us, getting on the dance floor with James Brown. Come on, I want to have that same energy, right? When the JBs play, I want you to have that same energy when I need you to come up here to this school. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way I look at it. That's the kind of grind I think our kids deserve, and not just the kids here at Leo High School, but the kids in our city and our country, right? That's the way I look at it.
And you just dated yourself, bro, with the JB's reference. So I'm just saying, if you get the JB's out, you have to get your Bengay out at the same time.
I should have said wipe me down for the younger brother. The younger brother,
Yeah. You should have.
Dude. I should have said wipe me down, but
I'll go back and edit it. I'll go back and edit it for this for we get that. So now tell me about some of the things. Like I said, I watch your Instagram and I watch your Facebook. It seems like you're always doing something. You're always going somewhere. Always having some type of program going on. Tell me about a couple of the things that you've been involved in recently, particularly if there's anything you're rather excited about that's going on at Leo High School.
Well, I can just do February. And we are definitely, I'm saying this, and I've worked here for 8 years. We are on another level. And I always tell my staff, we Black history over here. Right. Mm-hmm. So I don't care what your curriculum says, we Black history over here. And this is the one place where young Black men should feel like kings, at least this month, if no other month. Right. They should all the time. But this month, I want y'all to be proud. So we started this month off, and Yolanda Horton, who's a soror, actually put together a beautiful list of events for this month. So I'll start with the first week. We had Black Excellence in Aviation, where we brought in United Airlines pilots, OBAP, Organization of Black Airline Pilots, to come in and talk to our boys. We talked about the transportation. CDOT came by and talked about transportation. So that was really, all I want to show them is different iterations of Black excellence.
It's the cat.
I get so excited sometimes. My words tend to move on.
You're all good. Well, and while we got the break, you are aware, you mentioned Black aviators. The first Black licensed pilot in Illinois was a brother.
No, I did not know that.
William J. Powell, one of the charter members of Tau chapter.
You know what? Actually, I did know that. The brother that came was actually a Tau brother as well.
Okay, one of their charter members.
Yeah, he actually did tell us that. William Powell is a brother. Yeah, he was a frat as well. So we have a deep, rich history, and it's always nice to have brothers that are professionals in these organizations come to school, and they actually happen to be my frat brothers as well.
Right.
And so the second week we did Black Excellence in the Arts. We have rappers come through, poets and artists, muralists come through. Actually, one of the muralists did a couple of murals inside the school for us, and just talk about how you can be an entrepreneur and be an artist and still make a career and be successful. The week after that, we had Black Excellence in the fire and first responders. So we had police officers from the 6th District come over. We had firefighters come over. We had paramedics come over. So our thing is to constantly put new faces in front of our boys, giving them a message of hope and inspiration and saying, I was just where you were, or I look just like you, and this is where I am now. And it has been amazing. We just finished a presentation. Unfortunately, it was 2 Kappas, but they did a great job. They just talked about being entrepreneurs, right? So many of our boys, I want to be an entrepreneur. Well, here's how you get into it. But both of them owned multiple McDonald's at one point, right? 15, 16 McDonald's. And I explained to the boys when they got done, I said, we're giving you free game at Leo. I'm giving you, this is how I put 2 millionaires in front of you, and they know how to make $1 million. I'll tell you what they do know. They know how to make $1 million because they've done it and they've done it again. Mm-hmm. And so just giving the opportunity for our boys to be in those spaces, and the boys ate it up, hook, line, and sinker. They would have still been in there talking if I didn't have to come and do this call. So right, and I said, let's do it. We're gonna bring them back. We're gonna do another call so that the boys can get a chance to talk to them because they really wanted to stay and talk. That's just a few events. We performed for IDL, had their scholarship banquet last week. We performed for them.
Did see that.
We performed for the AKAs. Next week they have a community banquet that we're performing for. Our choir has gotten national attention now. They went viral on social media for doing their thing. CBS was just here last week. We had Jesse White here last week, former Secretary of State. So we had Jonathan Bodie, founder of Shy Gives Back, was just here last week. It's not just the work that I do, and I put it on my page, but it's actually the community showing up for these young kings, right? And so I might be curating this a little bit, like I do a little bit of work, but it's other people pointing to the boys. It's the boys saying, hey, Mr. Rawls, can you hook me up with this? I'm saying, say less, right? And so I just asked the two millionaires that came. I said, listen, you guys have all these businesses. I got a kid here who's a good kid. He needs a job. And they looked at me and said, say less, right? That's the kind of community that we need supporting the work for. Now, if everybody did that, if every school was able to have that kind of dexterity, to have that vision, that foresight, and the resources, right? I could pick up a phone and get people here from all walks of life because of the fraternity. So, and other connections I've made as well. But It does help that we know I know a guy somewhere that does something that I need, access to. So that helps as well.
Now you are, as you mentioned to me earlier, you are preparing to defend your dissertation. Can you tell me a little bit about what you are getting your doctorate in and what your dissertation is focusing on?
Yeah, so 8 years ago, I embarked on a journey to get my doctorate based on Dr. Stovall and Dr. Tozer and some good friends who are now I refer to as the doctors, Dr. Jennifer Olson, Ramona Alcala, and Dr. Marlon Cummings. And we all kind of band together. There's a host of other people. We all were in grad school together. We're like, we're going to finish together. And it was a beautiful experience. Since then, I've made quite the career at Leo, so my attention has been a bit diverted. So it's taken me longer than most to finish my degree. But on March 6th, I'll defend my dissertation, which is essentially it puts in academic terms the work that I do, how the community and educational policy impacts the community, and how the community can impact educational policy, right? And it just talks about how in one location the policy helped actually erode a particular community, and how we needed more policies and help rebrand and rebuild that community. So that's the essence of what my dissertation is on. And I really want to show that there's this relationship, and this is the work that I do at Leo. All hands on deck. This is a school, but it's also a school that feeds the businesses. So I need the businesses to come in here and talk about how do you run a business? What are the accounting measures that you need in place? What's the legal representation you need? What's your marketing program? Do you need a website? So like really, we all work together. And unfortunately, the way most schools work is that because of violence or whatever issues, that you walk into a building and say, hey, leave your gang affiliations out on the street. Leave who you are out there. Come in here and become a new person. Well, that's not the way people work. At Leo, we say, bring who you are into this building. I'm going to bring who I am, and we're going to all, the community will all adjust and work together. And so that's the way schools are really successful. When we say, bring who you are into this building. I know you might have a past and you got some traumas and all those things. Bring it into this space. I do too, right? I'm not better than you are. I work shoulder to shoulder with these boys, and that's the way schools should work. As opposed to, yes, I do get marked as the leader of Leo High School, but I spent in the car with the boys yesterday at an event. I learned more from driving them boys to and from that event yesterday than I did in all of grad school. Them boys schooled me on which teachers was laying it down, who they liked. They were telling me who should be teacher of the month. I mean, they came up, they said, we want to do this. I said, I got you, say less. Like when you realize that your kids are smarter than you, all I'm doing is trying to curate an experience. They the real show. And I say that all the time on my social media. These boys know what they're doing.
And I find that, and so that kind of segues into my next question. I know this may be a difficult question, but I hope it's a fun question. Are there one or two, can you point to a moment during your time at Leo where you were like, they get it, or I got it, or this is something that I really accomplished, particularly, again, going back to within the context of you being a former student of Leo, was there a aha or an achievement moment that you felt where you really felt proud and accomplished, and that you were able to accomplish what you're looking to accomplish?
Yeah, I am. There's no one harder on Shaka Rawls than Shaka Rawls. I will beat myself up. I still don't think that I'm successful in my job to this day.
Okay, well, you know what, bruh, you're wrong. So take it from me, okay?
I appreciate it, but all I see is all the missteps. That's all I see. We can have the best assembly in the world, all I see is the missteps. But every now and then, the kids will do something subtle. They'll look at me and say, "We got you. I got you." Right? I'll say, Valentine's Day, beautiful. Valentine's Day, I bought chocolates for all of the staff, and so one of the boys came and said, "Can we give them to the women, the female staff members?" I was like, "All right, cool." And I was like, "Make them feel special." And he turned around and looked at me and said, "I got you." It was at that moment where there was so much in that "I got you." Like, I know what the expectation is. You taught me how to respect women and make them feel special, and I will not let you down. All that happened in a simple "I got you," right? And they did not let me down. These boys showed up screaming and chanting, made them women feel like they was the cream of the crop. And I just, at that moment, maybe a tear slid out the corner of my eye saying, like, they got, at least that part, they got me, right?
Right.
Or one of the things that I often feel, and these are the smallest of things, right? It's not even like demonstrative. It was, I always say, what I say in this building is, I always say, don't let me down. right? Don't let me down. And so that means that one, I have high expectations for you. Two, you understand what those high expectations, and three, I want you to meet them. I expect for you to meet them. So don't let me down. And when I say don't let me down, they look at me and they say, I got you. Like, just don't even worry about me letting you down. Because that is based on love. They gotta love me, right? Even if they might hate my guts sometimes. I'm cool with that, right? But at one point, they know I love them, and they know I know that they love me. So when I say don't let me down, that means I believe in you. Don't make that belief be in vain, right? When I say don't let me down, that means that I'm expecting something great for you, and you know what that is, right? There's an understanding there, right? When I say don't let me down, that means that there's an expectation of Leo on what Leo should do, and you know what it is, and you about to show up. Show me you know what to do. Those are the littlest things. Every time that happens, and the boys look at me and say, "Chill, you worried about nothing," but we ain't gonna never disappoint you, right? And so I send them on a trip. I'll say, y'all know what the expectations are. Or when I correct them, I corrected a student in the assembly today. It was light work. He was kind of sleeping in the assembly. Teacher told him to get up. He didn't get up. I looked at him and I just said, get over there. He goes on to the thing. I said, you should have left when she told you to. I shouldn't have to come over here and tell you to get. He was like, I'm sorry. That's enough for me. Right? Be able to be redirected, right? Those are small things that we need to learn how to do. Be okay with some humility, saying my bad. I dropped the ball. But I'm also the first person in this building who will admit when I don't do something right. If I don't do my homework and the boys aren't being moved correctly, or I stagger something up, I'm going to be the first one to say I hold myself to a high expectation as well. I messed up. I tell them all the time, y'all need a better principal, right? I'm like, Mr. Rawls ain't doing his job today. Y'all need a better principal. They're like, oh, you good. You should hear the way they cheer for me, right? And so, and it's like, I've always had respect for my administrators in schools, but I don't think anybody has. I've never seen a principal get so much love from kids, right? You're supposed to be afraid of me, right? They want to come sit in my office. You know, they want to know, you know, can I come to their game? Can you come to my ping pong match? Can you come to my chess match? They want me everywhere all the time. And I try to show up for them. And so it's like the idea is that we've developed a relationship that's much deeper than I'm their principal, but I'm actually their biggest cheerleader. Nobody's going to pull for these boys harder than me. And nobody's going to make me be better at my job than me. And so when I look at the idea of success, I'm often looking at it from terms of, have I made another good brother? Have I made another strong Black man who believes in his community, who go out and make some money, who going to, do all the things that's necessary to be a contributing member of society? Now, those are my monikers of success. This last thing, and I know I've gone over, brother. I had a student come back, and we often, for 4 years, we often kind of got into it because I was fussing with him, and that's what I do. I fuss because I want them to do better. Come on, man, blah, blah, blah. He's a sophomore at Morehouse right now. Came back, sat right in his chair and said to me, Mr. Rawls, I ain't really messed with you when I was here, but now I see what you were saying. I'm done. I will come back to work tomorrow, son. I was about to quit, but not 2 years later, sophomore at Morehouse, and you say to me, I ain't really care for you back then, but I see what you was going. That's enough for me.
Right.
Those my flowers. That's enough for me. I think
that's
God
beautiful.
put me here so that boy can tell me that. So that's what I would tell you would be successful to me.
That's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I want to start wrapping up. I want to ask one particular last question. Again, referencing, as I mentioned, I used to be a grad advisor. One thing that I noticed during my time as grad advisor and talking with other alumni advisors and looking at other chapters across the fraternity and talking with our compatriots in some of our other fraternities, there seems to be an issue where colleges are not recruiting young Black men the way they used to. That the numbers in our chapters on these campuses are not at the same level that they were, even 15, 20 years ago. And so my question to you is, in what ways do you think we can help to combat this in terms of how we work with our young men and with some of our young women? And do you even see that as much of a problem? Maybe there's something that I'm missing from my perspective, and you as an educator may see things from a little bit different perspective than I do. Yeah,
that's a good point. The numbers are definitely down. And we're in a society, this microwave society that says that college isn't necessarily a way to fight to socioeconomic growth, social increase in socioeconomic status, right? And so when you think of, especially with social media, when people are saying I can be an influencer and make the same as a college graduate, right? The skyrocketing price of post-secondary education is a detriment, right? If I'm trying to get out of debt, if I'm trying to bring my family out of poverty, I'm not going to take out a $20,000 loan, right? And that's right. And so I think that the math has to math, right? The math got to be mathing, right?
Right.
And especially, I don't want $100,000 in debt to have a $50,000 job. I could work at UPS and make the same money with no debt. After 5 years. So we got to make sure that society has adjusted. It's particularly if we're trying to look at education as a way to improve the socioeconomic status of Black and brown folks in this country, then it can't put them in a further economic hole in the process of doing that, right? And so I think that we need to fundamentally look at how to move people systemically out of these particular situations, particularly these economic situations. The second thing is that I think that there are new industries that are emerging that don't require as much technical knowledge as they do cunning ability and tech savviness, right?
Okay.
So I think that people can make money in a variety of different ways that don't necessarily require you to have something that's rooted in the art, so that's rooted in history, that's rooted in the canon of education. So there are different ways to flip money. Bitcoin, right? That's not even, it's not even really math. That's super speculation, right? They're just industries that we need to make sure we're pivoting to, and that the academic course offerings in post-secondary institutions should match what society is actually accepting also. So, you're trying to teach me Latin and no one speaks Latin anymore, right? So, and I'm saying that as a Catholic too. So.
Right, I wasn't going to bring that up. I was going to let that slide.
I'm saying it as a Catholic. I'm like, why are you speaking Latin? Like, you're the only one that understand what you're saying. And so I think that there's a couple of things that we need to do as a society. And then lastly, you cannot negate the impact that COVID had on putting Black and brown folks in the college.
That's true. Yes.
And telling me to spend $20,000 to look at somebody on a computer screen is absurd, right? And so I think that those things need to be addressed in terms of making college and post-secondary educational attainment attractive to Black and brown folks.
Brother Rawls, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm sorry we weren't able to do this initially when we planned, but I'm glad we got you. You really have been an inspiration to a number of brothers. So I'm going to just ask you for any parting words as you are, and whether you just say thank you to what I'm about to say. But brother, you've been out doing the Lord's work. You've been making a difference. You have been moving and shaking, and I just want other people to see this and recognize what you are doing and how you are making an impact. So I thank you. Any parting words, any parting thoughts you'd like to leave everyone with?
Yeah, I'll say just two really quick things. One is that I honestly believe that Shaka Rawls quit this job probably about 5 years ago. I gave up. From that moment on, I just said, God, your will be done. God orders my steps. He brings me into work every morning because I love being here. I love this building. I love what I do. I do not want to work for a living. I would rather vacation for a living. That's what's the track. Shaka want a vacation for a living.
Join the club. Right.
But Principal Rawls got to go here and do the Lord. I do God's will in this building. I don't even to my own detriment. I barely get sleep. I work 1 million hours a week, but that's what God put me on this earth to do, and I'm gonna do it with a smile on my face. God's will be done. And the second thing is I need brothers to continue to support our little school, right? And so that's not, I'm not asking for donations. This is not an actual financial appeal. This is a pull up. If you have a unique skill set, if you have a talent, if you want to talk to some young, positive brothers, pull up. Reach out to me, srawls@leohighschool.org is my email address. Super accessible. You can find me on all the socials. The Real Mr. Rawls on Instagram, or my real name, Shaka Rawls on Facebook. You can find me on all the socials. Follow me on TikTok. Support the work that we're doing. Support these kings, and just continue. If you can go out and tell somebody what we're doing, evangelize for us, please do. There's a lot of work to be done. We got a long way to go. I remind my boys, CBS was here all day, and they're like, "Oh, we won. We ain't win. We got to go back to work." And so we got a long way to go. And many hands make light work. So I appreciate, you, Brother Smoot, for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate the district for for really supporting the work that we do and getting behind and watching what we do. And I'll obviously, shouts out to my fraternity, all my fraternity brothers, Alpha Phi Alpha Incorporated.
And even your chapter, Pi Sigma chapter, we got to give them a little bit of something. But I'll always have fun with the brothers from that chapter.
Absolutely, Pi Sigma's in the building always.
Always. Well, Brother Rawls, again, thank you. On behalf of our District Director, Brother Leonard McGinnis, we thank you for your work, and also on behalf of our Regional Vice President, Brother Franklin Stacy, both of whom are Illinois brothers. We do thank you. I say we appreciate you. We are proud of you, and please let us know collectively, what we can do on a larger scale for you, either as a district or a region. And just keep up the good fight, my brother. You've been doing good work, and sometimes good work is its own reward. That's what people say when they don't want to pay you. So since I'm not paying you for this, I'm saying this is your own reward. But keep up the good work, and we look forward to your future, and also good luck on your dissertation defense. I look forward to calling you Dr. Rawls very, very shortly.
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much.
All right, my brother, you take care, and we will talk soon.
All right.
Okay, everyone. So that was our conversation with Brother Rawls. I hope you enjoyed it as well as I did. Please remember, our next installment will be featuring Dr. Ernest Jackson. You don't want to miss that. Remember to like, subscribe, especially if you're watching on YouTube, to keep abreast on our events. If you want more information about Leo Catholic High School, you can access their website. And Brother Rawls just gave his email address a little while ago. You can contact him, or you can contact us at the district at illinoisalphas.org, and you can find us there. Until next time, I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you again.